Hello, marvellous, miscalculating maraudings. I'm Ralphie, and welcome to Ralphie Review here in the Bothy, number 902. And a big malt mention thank you to Peter Ledachowski. I hope I pronounced that right, Peter. And welcome, malt mates and rum rascals, because I have my Ralphie straw bunnet. This is my rum bunnet, actually, which I put on in the hot sunny weather, such as you get frequently in the Caribbean. And I'm going to be doing a rum review here because I've just finished a prolonged series of Scotch whisky reviews, and it's good to have a change. Now, I know, I do know that some of you are saying, hey Ralphie, just stick to whisky. But the fact is, and I just want to share this with you to give context and so you understand where I'm coming from. But as time goes on and we get more experienced with Scotch whisky, we start to yearn for a different sensation range, a different profile, a different character, a different type of spirit that we can sip like a single malt whisky, but gives us a whole different flavour experience. In other words, occasionally we are looking for malternatives, and an alternative to single malt, a good one, is rum. It's one of my favourites, actually. I do enjoy bourbons, I do enjoy rye, and I do enjoy mezcals now and again, and the occasional Armagnac. However, rum is my favourite Scotch whisky malternative, and fortunately we're spoiled for choice out there because rum is the most geographically diverse produced spirit in the world. And I've just poured a wee glass because it does need time to open up due to the age of the rum. And although you can see a bottle of Foursquare Détente on the barrel here in the Bothy, I'm not actually going to review this, but I'm going to start with this to give context. So buckle up, put on your sun hats, turn on your sunshine music, and we're going to have a rum review. Did I mention this is Ralphie Review 902? Yeah, I think I did. If I didn't, well, I have now. Here we go. Many experienced whisky drinkers, particularly in Europe, but also in North America, are probably very aware that there are some really good rums available, particularly from the Caribbean at the moment. And it's very easy to focus in on the hot spots of good rum, whether it be Martinique, Guadeloupe, Barbados, Jamaica. There is a huge amount of flavour diversity. And let's not forget Cuba, by the way. I know that for those of you in the United States, you can't get Cuban rum. But let me tell you that when you do get the opportunity to try it, I highly recommend it. It's got a wonderful, spicy complexity. And Cuban blenders are really, really good at their job. Rum producers, some of them, not all of them, have increasingly become aware of the interest in the whisky drinking scene towards rums which are not overtly sweet. They're more complex. And by the way, this goes for a lot of the rum drinkers as well. They're increasingly interested in rums that you would drink without drowning it in coconut water, lemonade, or Coca-Cola. These sipping rums. And Foursquare are right at the forefront of this. In particular, they have a range, the single blended rum, exceptional cask series. And this has only appeared on the scene in Europe in the last 3 or 4 years. But as soon as it appeared, there was an interest, and that interest has never stopped growing, to the extent now that when these bottles get released, and there's a series of them, this happens to be the Détente, aged 10 years, pot and column still, rum and the cask type, just to keep you informed. Ex-bourbon and ex-port. Delicious rum. Bottled at cask strength, 51%. Marvellous disclosure. Really useful information in the presentation. And this is our brand of rum from Foursquare Distillery, which is really getting a load of respect from whisky drinkers and brandy drinkers, cognac drinkers, to such an extent that when it does appear in the market now, it's selling out and turning up at auction at considerably higher prices. And also I'm noticing retailers, when they're selling this rum, the price is going up and up and up. So I'm not buying this rum anymore because I'm not prepared to pay the money, but I'm prepared to do the research and discover a substitute for this rum which is less expensive and just as good value due to the calibre of presentation. And it's not you will find rums bottled by the big independent bottlers like Cadenheads, for example. However, it's the little bottlers, and there's a lot more of these little bottlers out there. So when you do see bottles on the shelf in shops that you don't recognise, ask about them. It's really down to the calibre of the independent bottler. There's some very good small independent bottlers who are consistently bottling quality, and others not so much. So you really need to have the knowledge, but it's a great little journey to go down that rabbit hole and discover which independent bottlers are getting it right. In my opinion, Dramore, who are based in Scotland, they're a little independent bottling company. They're really getting it right with this Foursquare Distillery bottling. This has been aged 13 years. It's bottled at 60.9%, and that's quite a high ABV. It's quite a high alcoholic percentage for a Caribbean rum at that age, but there's a very good reason for that, and you find that when you go to the back of the label. Now, as you'll notice, if I've poured a glass, just letting that open up there, I'll come to it shortly. So what Dramore are saying, this is a single cask rum and distilled at Foursquare Distillery, 13 years old, and it's a combination of pot and column distillate, matured in both American oak for 8 years in Barbados. So this rum was produced in Barbados and remained there for 8 years before it was exported to the UK. And it's been 5 years in the UK in ex-Scotch whisky cask. So what you have is a Scotch whisky finished Bajan rum. And I have to make a minor disclosure here that I know the person who is the part owner of this company, and the reason I bought it was they recommended it. It's one of their own products and I trust their recommendation, so I bought it. Simple as. But I just like to include that little bit of disclosure just for transparency. So I'll hold the bottle forward so as you can see the label. This is the bottler Dramore. They export around the world despite being a relatively small company. So if you see the label, I recommend you give them a second glance and make a few inquiries with the trained personnel in the shop that you're buying your whisky from or your rum. Immediately you notice it. It's unmistakably Foursquare. Foursquare has that distinct syrupy, sweet and dry, syrupy, mixed spice thing going on that you get with the other Bajan rums, which include Mount Gay and St Nicholas Abbey. There's a fourth distillery on the island, but frankly it is of no interest to me because I think the culture around that rum distillery is wrong, and I'll maybe come back to that and discuss it later. There's a story. A wonderful, velvety, rich, distinctively rum nose with loads of spices, some very mild cassis, nutmeg. There's a gloriously rich honeyed sultana note on the nose as well. You can tell that this is a busy, busy rum, bottled at, and I'll mention this again, 60.9%. This is being single cask. There's 277 bottles from this cask. It's every bit as good as the official bottling, even on the nose, before we even get round to tasting it. Oh. Put that out of the way, save any confusion. Richly flavoured, beautifully dense, absolutely rum. If it wasn't a rum, it would be a very, very sweet whisky. Sherry cask matured type of whisky. Not quite sure where the sherry notes are coming from. Perhaps it's in the whisky cask, because this has been matured for 5 years in the UK, a much cooler climate, which accounts for the higher alcoholic strength for the age. In other words, it's had that Caribbean maturation for 8 years, and then a further 5 years, much slower, and giving time for the influence of the whisky casks to be fully assimilated into the rum. I suspect they examined this 2 years ago for bottling and said, no, we'll just let it go further to allow a little bit more of the whisky influence. A splendid decision. I'm putting in a full teaspoon, 5 millilitres of water from out my little glass jug, and it will transform this. This is one of these rums, and I'm not quite sure, is it just because it's a really good quality rum, or is it the whisky cask influence? It just continues to develop like a whisky in the glass, rather than a rum, which tends to be fairly slow to develop. But it's well worth being patient and well worth giving it time, because as soon as you've added some water, you bring your nose back to the glass, you get some dusty cask notes, you get some lemon and grapefruit oil notes, so you're getting that citrus, that almost conserve or marmalade style of citrus and tropical fruit note. The nose is glorious. It's, I would say, one of the finest Foursquares that I've come across for a while. You can get more reasonable, accessible versions of Foursquare in the RL Seal bottlings and Dourley's, and they also do some other versions where they have rum fusions going on. So when it comes to Foursquare Distillery, they're very busy people putting out tremendous permutations and variations on the theme of what they do. If you're a whiskey drinker, if you're a rum drinker and you're wanting to focus on one distillery, Foursquare is a very good place to start. There's a very delicate smokiness in there as well, which I believe must be coming from the whisky casks. It really comes across as a fusion dominated by the rum, but you can see both influences have sort of balanced each other off quite nicely in the glass. You won't really notice this until you've given a good 10 minutes. Let's have another taste. Surge in the arrival. Nothing short of an absolute methodical surge of sweet and sour sugarcane traditional rum where the pot still's dominating. beautiful toffee notes and caramel notes, but they're never cloyingly sweet. This isn't a dosed rum, far from it. The development is relatively swift, but it's full of flavour. The spices, some sultana, honey, absolutely, and that distinctive Foursquare sugarcane complexity, doing a wonderful job. And in the finish, starts to go a little more citrus, a little drier, as the whisky influence exerts itself a little more strongly. Excuse me. And you get this crispness in the finish, which is an absolute delight, because it kind of cuts through the suggested sweetness. It's sweetness that's not imposed in this rum, but suggested from the arrival and through the development. It's really good stuff, and of course a much better price than the official bottlings, because the official bottlings are now collectible. There you go. Very much a drinking rum. Get this intensity, sweet and sour, and a kind of dry, almost scorched sweetness in the development that really hangs about and nips the tongue beautifully. Now, let's get our marks out. Dramore were taken to court by another independent bottler because of using the name More, and the complainer reckoned that there could be brand confusion, but just for the record, I don't think there'd be any brand confusion to be had. I think both the bottlers with More in their name are good bottlers, and I don't even think that anybody uninformed would be confused by the identities. And Dramore, by the way, won their case. Just thought I'd mention that in passing, because these things get noticed, malt mates and rum rascals. These things get talked about behind the scenes. They're visible. They used to be invisible when, in the whisky industry, when there was lawsuits and things and claims for damages and such like. It used to be very much under the radar, but not these days. So, as a rum mark, I'm going to give this 90 out of 100, and I'll tell you why. Because it's an integrity rum. It's cask strength. It's naturally presented. It's full flavoured, and you're getting information which is valuable rather than just the kind of Caribbean vibey stuff. They're telling you about the casks used, they're telling you a little bit about the history, and this really, really matters because it gives you perspective and context to what you're drinking. That's the reason. It's a very affordable, decent version of one of the Caribbean's very best distilleries. And there you have it. It's a rum mark, a yo-ho-ho. If you pop back again for my Ralphie Review 902 Extras, I shall be introducing and talking you through another Caribbean rum as part of this little mini series. It's just for these two videos, just a short series before I go back into Scotch whisky. But I'll be introducing a very, very interesting rum, again from Barbados, but from another distillery. It's fascinating. I'm going to share the experience with you in the extras, and I'll withhold giving it a mark because it is an extras, but I will tell you whether it's worth looking out for if you can actually find it, because to be honest, it's such a singular rum from such a reputable distillery. Despite the price, it basically sold out very, very quickly. But I just want to make you aware of these types of rum bottlings, because we're going to see more of them, malt mates and rum rascals. And thank you for watching.